You don't need that one today. Yeah. Yeah. I think I got that, yep. All right, now, it's really important that you guys all have access to this slideshow on your computers. So we did this the last time, and that was like the address. So I just want to make sure you guys all have it, because the links to all the lessons and everything are in there. That's a good idea. Somebody can send you the picture. His phone's in his car.
No. Yeah,
I just want to make sure I know everybody's name. So I'm Trish, you're Ethan?
Yes.
Okay, and
Reggie.
Reggie, Regina, and Stephanie? Okay. Not Elizabeth?
I have been. My name is Reginald Rosemont. My name is too long. So I used to cut.
I know, I'm just wondering if I could put my computer up there, that way we can all see it at the same time. All right, so. What happened? It's a beautiful scene.
Is there any electricity around here? Yeah.
I just lost everything. Unless I had opened up. Ay, ay, ay. I had everything opened up and I just lost it. So I will show you as I go through, and that might be good for you to see how you have to prepare anyway. Okay, so this was the training slideshow, and a lot of links are in the slideshow you'll see as we proceed through. This kind of tells you the first night what we're going to do with testing them on their letter names and their letter sounds. Just showing them a page of letters and asking what the letters are as they go across the page. And then you should also ask them the sound of each letter. Okay, so go through again and ask them for the letter sound. And we'll figure out what letters they know the name of and what letters they know the sound of. Okay? And then if they know like 15 or more letters on here, then you're going to want to give them this little placement test. So this has the student copy in the back, I believe, yes. So where it says student material, this is what you'll have to display to the child, okay? So you would have to separate this apart from your grading paper. Oh, sorry, I forgot I'm supposed to be doing that, damn it. Sorry, I'm being a bad girl. So, yep.
So we did the letter names, letter sounds, and then we go to,
If they know like a majority of letters and sounds already, then we want to see if they can read any words.
okay.
So that's why you,
That part today, I know you said that
Yep.
the other day.
yeah. So that's why you would give them this little test, okay, the UFly placement test. And what we're using is a UFly program. UFly stands for University of Florida Institute, Literacy Institute, and they're really excellent, and we'll be using a lot of their materials. So if we give if they can know a lot of letters and sounds already, like if you have a first grader or a second grader who's reading a little bit, right? But might not have enough advanced phonics skills to read a lot, then we're going to want to give them this placement test, and it starts with simple words that are only 3 letters apiece. We call these CVC words, you know. These are real words on the top, and then these are nonsense words. So what I was saying the other night is if you're not comfortable with, like yourself, with nonsense words, then you don't have to administer that part. You can just give them the simple words, and you can, the real words, and skip the bottom, okay? No, that's different. That's the sight words. Yeah. Yeah, they don't all necessarily follow the rules. So this will help us determine kind of where they are in phonics. If they know these, we move on to this, and this will, because it progresses through levels of difficulty, it'll help us place them with where they are. Maybe they're very comfortable with short vowels and simple words, but they fall apart when there's magic E words, or when they have to do longer words, or when there's words with like a vowel team or a bossy R. So we're kind of, it'll help us determine where they are and what they know, okay? Letters and sounds. Yeah, if they know at least 15 letters and sounds, that's pretty good. So then I would see, can they use those to read words, okay? And then this is like the same test. This is just where you mark. It says teacher form on it. And this says student material. So you're trying to have them read like Matt, and you're marking here, let's say they said met. Then I would cross it out and write met above it. And that lets you know that they don't know the vowels, the short vowels, but they do know, they know M and T, but they don't know the short vowels as well. So you ask them to read all the. The reason nonsense words are on here is because sometimes a child, if exposed multiple times to a word, their brain just kind of memorizes it. So it's possible that they're not really understanding and using phonics to read the word, and that their brain just kind of knows that word. If they have nonsense words, they're not, they haven't been exposed to a whole lot of nonsense words because they're not real. So they have to use letter sounds to sound them out. They have to be able to go ip, mip, and sound out each one. But if you're not comfortable with nonsense words, a lot of adults aren't. I would understand that. You just don't do it, okay? And that's okay. I think we would still get a pretty good idea where they were. So there's 10 real words and 10 nonsense words every time. So it goes from CBC words to what we call digraphs, which are like PH, CK, CH, two consonants together. They have ALL here. Do they know that's all and not like owl? That kind of thing. This is a magic E section. So like here, the E is changing the A to its long sound, so it's saying made and not mad. And the same thing is happening across the page with all those magic E words. And then it progresses through even more difficult words. So 2-syllable words here. These have endings that are a little difficult, like DGE says j, it doesn't say dj. And this ILD says ild and not ild. And we want to know if they know that. And these all relate directly to the UFly lessons. So like if they fell apart in this section and they didn't know those things, you would start on the lessons where you would teach them those, okay? The bossy R, like AR together says R, OR together says or, etc. And then it goes even farther. I'm not sure how far you're going to get with little ones because we're only aiming for K1, 2. So if you have a second grader who already knows vowel teams, like that's pretty good. I'm not sure they need us. So I don't think you're going to get this far in the test, but you might. So we just want to meet them wherever they are, and you're grading it here. You're able to like calculate how many of 5 they got in this line, how many of 5 they got in this line, and then move on to the next section. If they get 5 in a row wrong, you have the option of discontinuing because they probably are not going to, do well with the rest of them. So once they start falling apart and knowing 5 or less, probably is time to stop rather than torture them with the rest of the test because you're just really looking for your starting place with the lessons, okay? So I thought we would like run through a lesson, couple of lessons. Let me take this out of here so when I turn my head, you still hear me. When I turn my head and look at the computer. Okay, so this talks about, this is the letter sound test that we just went over. This is the UFI placement test. And then we should probably also do sight words. So you have a list of the most common sight words, and you could ask them to just read it. It goes from here down the first column, not across the page, okay? So in order of difficulty. So you would have them start trying to read these most common words, and once they skip like 5 or 6, then they probably won't know the rest because they're harder. So you, like, if they can read all the way down to the word his, for example, but they don't know they, then you can make word cards for all the rest of the words. They, I, be, at, this, have, from. And I would make like maybe 5 until they know those 5, like drill them every week. And when they know those 5, add 5 more, you know. You could even ask them the next 5, do you know these? And if they don't, then you make the word cards. So this is pretty straightforward. It's just like, you know, drilling the sight words. Because a lot of these don't follow the rules. Like even the word the doesn't follow the rules. TH does say th, you can say th or th, but the sounds like it should end with a U, because U says but it ends with a E. So it's, you know, a lot of these are difficult. Some do follow the rules, but a lot of them don't. Even Y-O-U-U does not follow the rules. So, okay, so that's that's the sight word test. So I think the first night, I don't know how you want to structure it, but I feel like it should be like a kind of little get to know you with the child, you know. Maybe have a snack, talk to them, try to figure out what they like and don't like, and make sure they're comfortable with you, give them these little tests. And I don't know if you'll really have time then to get into like a lesson. It would also give you then time to figure out, okay, where are they? And me time to help you figure out where are they and where should we start them then in the lessons? You know, after the session, we could have time to figure that out, okay?
So you're going to help us with the evaluation of the student?
Yeah, I'll be there the first night. I mean, I think you'll be evaluating them, but if you're not sure what to do, I can certainly sit down and help you, yeah, okay?
I
All right.
think it's probably pretty safe to say, don't you think, that we won't be there on Tuesday?
No, I don't think that.
Okay. I don't
Yeah.
think we'll be there this Tuesday.
Yeah, I know, I was
It's like
almost
snow kind of thing. Yeah.
thinking, like I can do this again right before we start with people who aren't here today, if you, because I think the fresher it is, you know, doing it right before you start might be better, you know? All right, so like I said, we're using UFly. This is a link to the UFly toolbox, which when you open this up, it's their whole website, and it references everything we're going to be using. I don't think you really need to use the link I just showed you, though, because I have like linked specifically the things you'll need as you proceed through. These lesson slides are going to be really important, okay? So if you click this, this brings up the lesson slides in order. Like A is the first letter UFly teaches, then M, S, T, P, F, and et cetera, okay? So they're all right here on the side. And then if you look at a slide, it has links embedded within it. Like let's say your child should start with G, okay? That's what we've determined after the first night. I'm going to do a simple lesson with you and a more advanced lesson with you, like run through them, okay? So this one that just says link is the UFly link, okay? Which is what we're mostly going to be using. I also have another link that I've just called Trisha's link. So UFly is a new program, and like I said, it's free, which is, and it's very good. Abington uses it where I teach, I'm using it every day. Now, for the first year ever, we just got it. We used to use a different program that I wouldn't be able to give you access to because it's not free. I would just have it at school. And we built slideshows that help teach the same concepts. So like if you taught G with the UFly and your student wasn't learning it, like in one session, and you needed to go back and do G again, and you didn't want it to be boring, there's another link here that to my old slideshows that could help a little bit, you know, like a circle of things that start with G, and you could have them do that. And it's very simple, but it could, and sometimes they have videos in them, which is fun. So if your child kind of needs to review a concept, you could use my link, but otherwise I think it's best to start with the UFly link. And the little slideshows kind of run you through everything that you're going to need, okay? All right, so going up to the top, it opened up on the story, which is like one of the last things. So just slide up to the beginning, okay? And then I always go into slideshow mode when I'm teaching so that it's filling the entire screen and they can see it pretty well, okay? All right, so your first activity is called phonemic awareness. So for this is the first part of the lesson, which these are all highlighted here too. In the teaching slideshow that I first showed you, there's a quick overview here. And then if you wanted to review this before you started, I have like a slide for each part of the lesson, okay? So if like you're forgetting what I'm saying right now, you can reference this again before the first session to kind of make sure that you know what you're talking about, okay? So step one in our lesson is phonemic awareness. We're going to provide a word to the child, and it's all auditory, which is why on the slide you see it looks like an ear and some fingers breaking apart words. So I'm going to provide a word to the child, like let's say my word was, we'll go back to the real lesson and we'll do it, okay? These are words on the bottom. You don't want the kid to see this. So like if you were my student, at this point I would turn the computer so you weren't looking at it, okay? And I'd be saying to you, okay, without, now we're going to look so you can see what I'm doing. But you don't really want the kid looking at the words because it's auditory, okay? I put them here for you so that you know what they are, okay? And you can see a lot of them have G, because G is the letter that we're focusing on, okay? So I'd say my word is mug. Let's all tap out mug. You ready? G. We do like chopping hands a lot, to chop them. You can do fingers. G, okay? And let's do another one. My word is fog. Tell me all the sounds in the word fog. And then your students should be able to go without you, g. If they can't, then you do it with them until they understand, okay? After a couple weeks, they should be getting it. All right, can you tap out the word got? G, t. Separate the three sounds really distinctly for them, okay? My word is Doug. Let's separate that one out. D, g. Got it, okay? Now there's a few more left, so you want to do the opposite. Now I'm going to give you the sounds and you tell me the word, okay? So my word is dog. D, g. Oh, I told you the word. I shouldn't have. Listen to the sounds of my word. It's d, g, and you say dog. These are the sounds of my word. P, g. What's my word? Pig. Here's my sounds. G, p. What's my word?
Gap.
And my last one is g, t. What's the word?
Gut.
Excellent. So you do both. You do giving them the word and having them provide you with the sounds, and then you give them the sounds and see if they can auditorily blend those together and give you the word, okay? Doing all this auditory work with the sounds you're about to teach helps them connect the sound to the actual print, okay? All right, so next is a visual drill. And this little symbol with an A with a box around it just lets you, is kind of this symbol for the visual drill coming. You can do A says A every time if you want, but the actual drill starts on the next slide, okay? So you would be saying U says These are all previously learned sounds. So lesson, I forget where G is, but it's like several lessons down, okay? So these are all previously learned sounds from UFly, so your child should probably know these sounds. U says, and you're giving them the sound, you're giving them the letter and they're saying the sound. C says, k, good. D says, d. O says, ah. N says, mm. I says, eh. F says, P says, p, good. T says, S says, M says, mm. Some of these we talked about this one time when I was first training you guys. Try not to put like sounds on the end of it, like we do clip the sound, we call it. So, M, just say, You want to like just isolate the sound of that letter so that later on if they go to blend a word, let's say they're trying to read the word mat, right? If you're going M, then they're going to be saying M, and they're going to be going at, and they're putting that in there. So you really just want them to be going at, mat, okay? So that's why you want to clip those sounds off. And then A says, ah, and now the auditory drill is you go through the same letters, but you have them write the sounds, okay? So again, I would like turn my computer, and now you're doing the opposite. I was giving you the letter, you're making the sound. Now I'm gonna give you the sounds, and you're gonna write down the letter. So I would have like a whiteboard out, okay? And I would say, okay, the sound is ah. What letter is that again? And they are writing an A, Okay.
Now for purposes of-
If you want to, might be a good idea. We could use them again later on in the lesson too. They're good for another step as well for our word work. All right, so if you guys want to, you can be students and write the letters. I don't have an eraser. I don't know if you guys have like a tissue or something. I just cut up an old T-shirt, and I use that for my erasers at work. So if you guys want to do that. All right, so we'll do another letter. So again, your students shouldn't be looking at it because you're trying to get them to generate this letter on their own without looking, right? So what letter says and they would write down an M, okay? What letter says S? Oh, what letter says S? And they write down an S. What letter says T? And hopefully they know that's a T. Try to always use lowercase letters. I'm going to pick on you, Ethan, because I saw you wrote a capital T. Try to always use lowercase letters because lowercase letters are what they're going to see all the time when they're reading, right? We don't like open a book and see a bunch of uppercase letters. So that's why we don't spend too much time. We do teach them. The slides will teach them how to form the uppercase and the lowercase, which you can spend a couple of minutes on. I would go through those kind of quickly. My kindergartners at school, I spend longer trying to get them to do proper letter formation, but you're only going to be seeing them once a week. So we really want to teach them how to read, and we're not that worried about the writing and the penmanship, okay? What letter says P? And they should write down the P. What letter says F? And they could write down the F. Now, sometimes there's multiple responses to this when you get lower on in the lessons. Like if you had just taught them that PH also says F, then they should be writing down PH and F because they both represent the sound, okay? So as you get more further on in the lessons, the answers get more complex, okay? And then what letter says I, and they write down an I. What letter says N, and they write down an N. What letter says ah, and you write down an O. So you just kind of run through all those same letters, and those, like I said, are like previously taught skills. So if your student knows some letters and they start on the letter G, then you're just reviewing things they probably already know and have displayed that they know on their placement test, okay? All right, so after the auditory drill comes a blending drill. And so there's a cool thing on UFly that I'll show you. It comes up, looks just like this. It's a letter board. And you make these words for the kids to go ahead and try to sound out and spell. Now, looking at all those words, you're going, wait a minute, none of them have a G, and I thought I was teaching G. So in the blending drill, you're doing previously taught sounds. You're still focusing on previously taught sounds. You haven't gotten to the point in the slides yet where you're teaching the new concept, okay? That's still coming. But we want to go over the letters and sounds that we think they already know and make sure that they're still applying those and they haven't forgotten them, okay? So we're going to do a blending drill. Now, the blending drill is connected on here. This is the letter and sound drill that we just did. And then the next step is the blending drill, and you'll see the link that says UFly Blending Board. So like if I were the tutor, before I went to this session, I would probably have this already pulled up, okay? And the UFly Blending Board is here. When you teach more advanced concepts, these 3 lines will, for G, we only need this. But when we're teaching more advanced concepts, you need to touch those 3 lines and it brings up all the other letter combinations that you might need to use, okay? And you can touch them and then they show up on the screen. Like for the more advanced concept I was going to do with you today, I know I need ST, and I know I need SQU, and I know I need some of the bossy R's, so I would touch all those. I'm remembering, I had this all already pulled up on my computer, but I somehow lost it. So now I'm trying to remember what else I needed. I know I needed ST. Where's ST? But this is, you just touch them and they'll show up for you. It's kind of cool. All right, and then when I click back to this little check mark, you can see it added all those little tiles in, okay? So this is another thing you'll want to have prepped, okay? And you'll know what little letters and combinations you need because you can see the words that you're going to have to build right there, okay? So again, you don't want the kids looking at that. So I wrote them on like a little piece of paper because I don't want to have to flip back and forth between two screens when I'm teaching them, and I don't want them looking at them at all. So there's the blending board tab, and they're only looking at this, and I have my words in front of me. So I make a word just by touching the letters I need, like this is the first word. You have the kids read it, and the word is up, right? And I say, okay, I'm going to add a letter. Now what word is it? And the kids hopefully can say cup. I can change cup. I'm going to change the first letter, and now it says pup, okay? And now I hardly can read my own writing. And now I'm going to change the middle letter from pup. Oh, the last letter, now it says pun, good. And now I'm going to change the middle letter, and now it says pan, and I'm going to change the first letter. What do you think it says now? Can, good. What if I change the A to an O? Now it says con, and then I can change the last letter. Now it says cod, and then I can change the first letter. Now it says mod, like in modern, and I'm going to change the O to an A, and it says mad, good. What if I did this? Now it says mid, now it says did, now it says, what if I change two letters? What if I do this? What's that? Sud, like in suds, and I'm going to change the last letter. Now it says sun. So it's real quick because the letters are right there, and you can go through it as fast as I just did because these are all previously learned sounds, so it's just like a quick practice for them reading and reading words with sounds they've already learned, okay? So that shouldn't take too long. That's the next part in the lesson. Step 4, is where you're going to teach your new concept, okay? And that comes up right on the slides. If you're just following along with the slides, it comes up right on the slides that here's your new concept. It's the letter G, and the symbol for the letter G is a goat because G says G, like in the word goat. A lot of kids mix up G with J and think that G says J. So you have to make it very clear that it's G, 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 goat. I always have them put like their hand here in their throat because G is in the back of your mouth, G, 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 and J is up here, J, 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 okay? Sometimes G does say J. That's why kids mix it up, right? Like if they look at the schedule on the wall, they're going to gym on Thursdays, that's GYM, right? So if it's followed by, the G is followed by an E, an I, or a Y, it sometimes does say J. And that's a U-Fly lesson that you would teach later on. But first, we want them to master the most simple concept for G, which is G. And it's the sound it makes most of the time. So G sounds like goat, G, 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 goat. It can come in the beginning of a word. Here's a word where it comes in the beginning. Let's get it out. G, A, T. It's going to give them all letters, words that they've already learned all the sounds from previous lessons, okay? So it's very smartly designed that it keeps reviewing concepts that they've previously learned, okay? Here's another word where G's at the beginning. G, as. What's the word? Gas, okay? You're teaching them that G can also go at the end of a word, okay? Let's look at some words that have G at the end. What's this one? G, fog. And here's G where there's another G at the word with G at the end. Ag, tag. Okay, so our symbol for G can also be a ghost because G makes the same sound as G, 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 ghost, and G, 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 goat. You can even have them like come up with other words that start with G if you want, okay? And here's how you make a G. This is capital G, this is lowercase g. And then you can make one for them, they can try one. What I love on the next slide is it shows them how they're supposed to be forming the words. It like automatically plays a repeated video of how they can build the letter. So like for G, I always tell them it's like making a big C. And then you just keep going straight up and then straight in. And I'd have them write a couple of G's. But like I said, I would not spend too much time on this, and they might want to, because this is the fun, easy part. So you're going to have to be the one to be like, no, let's do something different. We want to learn how to read, too. And here's lowercase g, and you could make one. And then again, it will show them lowercase g. Lowercase g can be hard for some kids. So anything that helps them to remember, like I always tell them, it looks like you start out making an A, right? Around, up and down. A lot of kids can make the letter A. So then you just keep on going and you curl under the A. Curl under the part of the A. If you curl the other way, it's like a Q. So you want to curl under what you just wrote. Curl under the A part, and now you have a G, okay? And then we're gonna read some words. It says watch me read because you're supposed to like, see, show them how to do it. But if they already know how to read, if they've already been sounding out words with you, I would have them do it. T-ug, tug. And you do another sample, g-ap, gap. And then on the next slide, they're supposed to be reading. So I always have multiple kids in the room, so I would give them each, a turn to read a word for me and see who's getting it and who's not. So you present those one at a time. And if you're in slideshow mode, they just come up one at a time like that, which is kind of nice, and the kids can read them. You usually have at least 2 slides of words that they can read, okay? You notice none of them have a picture because we want to rely on them sounding out the words, okay? The picture keys are only for them to remember what sound that letter's supposed to make, okay? All right, the next part of your lesson is called word work. That's step 5. So in step 5, you're going to be having them build words and spell words that have the sound that you just taught, okay? So this is where the whiteboard comes in handy. There's also something in UFly that's called a word work mat, and they come in beginner and intermediate. So the beginner board is just letters, and they can slide them into these gray boxes. So this is another way you can do it, where you can have your word work. I wrote my word work words on here, okay? If you notice on the slides, all the word work words that I'm gonna have the kids write are right here. So like, I wrote them on a separate piece of paper today because I don't want them to see them because I'm trying to have them spell them. So here's another part of the lesson where I would turn my computer away and have them write on a whiteboard, which is fine. Or you could use the word work mat and just have it on a different tab on your computer. So the first word is mug, so you have them tap it out. Yeah, those are good. Yep, letter tile boards are perfect too. Those have the consonants on the left side and then the vowels are on the top because you cannot make a word that doesn't have a vowel. So I always have the vowels just on the top. A lot of the kids will mix up the sounds of the vowels, like E is always mixed up with I, and O is often mixed up with U. So you have to make sure they really know those vowel sounds or it'll be really hard for them to do well with their words. So I think we have like 5 or 6 of those, right? So you could grab, and even just change it up. So like it's, they could have the whiteboard one week. They could do that another week. They could use the blending board another week, just so that it's not like the lessons aren't getting boring for them. You'd be like, oh, let's use this fun thing, So you have them, you give them a word, you have them tap it out, and then you have them try to spell it. So the first word is mug, so you're going, let's tap it out, everybody. Before you pick up your pen, let's tap it out, because they always want to start writing right away or moving the letter tiles right away. But try to have them tap it out first. G, and then they can slide these into place. G. If they make an error, you're going to point out, like, why it's wrong, okay? Like if they chose an an O here by accident, you're going to remember it says, let's look at your word. Ag. That's the word mog. What do you think is wrong? Because I'm trying to write mug. And hopefully they realize, oh, it's the O that's wrong, and it's U that says right? And so there's my word, mug, okay? And then the word work usually goes where you only have to change one letter to make a new word. So when you're writing on a whiteboard, it's kind of fun because they can just erase one letter and make the new word, okay? Or if you're using the little letter boards, they can just take the one letter away and change it and have a new word. So the next word is tug. All right, let's see. We want to change mug into tug. T-ug. Well, the ug part is right. What do I need instead of the right? I don't need a I need a t-ug. And hopefully they're able to do that on their own. This is what they should be doing, okay? I'm just doing it so you can see how it works, but really they should be doing it. And then tug into dug. So you put the T back, d-d-d-ug. Oh, I need a D here, okay? A lot of times they mix up B and D. So if on a whiteboard is where you'll mostly see that, because here it's more obvious that's a B and that's a D just because they're in order. And same thing with the letterboard. But I always have them do little thumbs up, and I'll show them. This is a B. The first thumb is always going to be B, and the second one is always going to be D, and you can kind of trace it. So for a kid who does a lot of B and D reversals, that can be good, okay? And even if they're like looking at their hands this way, it still works. Your first hand is always B, and your second hand is always D. You can visualize like the bubble and the line, right? So you would run through them all. There's a lot, and you could go kind of quickly, hopefully, if they can keep up with that. But we just made 3, and there's like 9 words. So you would go like mug, pug, dug, change dug into pug, change pug into pig. So now they have to change the vowel. Change pig into dig, dig into dog, dog into dot, dot into cot, cot into cut. And then you get back to the G's with cut into gut and gut into got, okay? So you can see all those words. So that will become quicker the longer you do it. This is also something you can like cut down less words. Like if you discover in the first session that you didn't get to finish the whole lesson or you only got halfway through, you could do less words than is on the screen, okay? And that's true for the blending drill as well. That's another way to shorten up your lesson. Okay, so after word work, you're going to do your sight words, which is you're going to just have your flashcards already prepped after the first week, and you're going to read the words with the kid. If they don't know the words, you're going to try to, just review them over and over until they do know them. It might be a good idea for you to have a set and then also make a second set that they can take home and read at home. Because ideally, we'd also like to send them home with a book that they can read, so like they can be hopefully reading their little sight word pile and a book or two every night until they meet with you again. So this is really kind of near the end of the lesson, the sight words, and the last one is just really to read a book with them. If you even get this far, you might not. You can track the print with your finger. With every lesson, there is a story as well in UFly. So here's our word work, and then the next thing is connected text, where it starts with sentences. I would try to at least read the sentences with them, see if they can read these sentences. The sentences will always have words with the focus letter on there for you. Mom got a mug. Mom got a mug. Try to have them sound out each word and make sure they can read the whole thing. And there's 3 sentences every time, and then there's a story. And the story is usually just a slide or 2 in the beginning when you're doing just a simple, like that's the whole story. When you're doing a simple letter. And then as you are doing more advanced concepts, the stories get a bit longer. We also have these are all available to be printed. So like I have, it's like a stack. There's like, UFly lessons go up to 100 and something. So I have a big stack in my classroom, which I can make you guys a copy. And then, I don't know if they have a printer available at school, but it would be great if they did. Because part of what I could do while you guys were doing your lessons is I could print out everybody's story, depending on where your kids are. They would be individualized. And you could send home, like that Gus the dog story, you could read it with them in class, and then they could go home with it to read at home as well. So that might be nice. Again, there's no pictures in the story because we want them to rely on sounding out the words as they read. So there is, when you print out the story, there's always like a little box on the top of the page so that the kid could draw their own illustration of the story. So that's also kind of fun. They can do that at home as well. That's another thing I'd probably try to avoid because your time is limited with them. If you have time at the end, sure, let them draw a picture, but you probably are going to be running out of time, is my suspicion. So that can be like a fun activity for home, and then they could come back in and show you their picture the next time, and you could tell them how amazing they are. So, so that's kind of the whole lesson. So,
Ask you, one thing, because I was trying to make sure it's in writing here, and if it's not in writing here, I want to make sure I
okay.
have it in my head. When you're reading the, after step 6 is the sight words, and then the next slide, it says read sentences, so
Yeah.
so we're reading the sentence, or we're asking them?
We're
to read
asking
the
them to read the sentence. If they can't, you're helping them.
Okay, because it just
you
says
know?
read the sentence, but it doesn't say
Yeah.
who. So
Yeah,
it's
they
them,
should be doing all the reading work
kids.
for the most part, and if they can't, you assist them.
But it says also like tracking with their, so they're reading and tracking with their own.
When they're reading a book, because we also have some books, like simple books in my garage that I'm going to bring eventually when we get settled at school. So it's also nice for them just to have a real book with illustrations and colors and whatever else. So if you have time and when you wanted to read a real book with them, they should be touching the words on the page as they go. Even this, at school, when we get to the story part, I don't read it on the screen. I like give the kids a copy of the story and we read the story and I'm watching them touch the words as they go. So that would be another thing. Once we know where your kids are, we can have that set up and ready for your lesson. Okay? So, all right. So how do you feel about all the steps? Do you guys have any questions about any of it?
I'm gonna just need to review it, and so, and
Yeah.
have my tabs open, like, in an order that I
Yeah, have
want,
your
so
tabs
I
open
don't
is
wanna,
always
like,
good. Have your
notes
words
down.
written down that are on the slides. They're there on the slides because you need to know what they are. For me, they're in my teacher's manual. So like but you won't have a teacher's manual. So I'm trying to put the things on the slides that are in the teacher's manual so that you guys can kind of prep for your lesson, okay? When you get, there are some more advanced skills, you know, that you're going to get to, and you might be a little confounded by what they even are. So that I would kind of look over all, like what the lesson is, so that you know the phonics yourself. Obviously, you're all readers, so you can read, right? But like to me, this is like at the back of my hand, and for you might have to be be reminding yourself of, oh yeah, like Q always goes together. Q and U are stuck together. You never see a Q without a U, or you might have to remind yourself of the magic E rule or whatever it is. I had also had the thought that I would do a more advanced lesson with you, but I'm kind of feeling like I don't want to, you know, go too crazy and do too much. How are you guys feeling about it?
I'm thinking that this is a great place to start, and then as we get started in doing it,
Okay.
perhaps as you're available, we can have little other mini lessons where we get together and
Yep.
like, okay, well, you know, these many kids are doing the letters, and we're gonna
Right.
keep focusing on that. You guys are doing great. We're gonna pull these couple of tutors to do, you know,
Yep.
the ones that are other, and we'll review that content,
Okay.
and then like to prepare for.
That's also the good thing about me being there, I think. If I can be there most weeks, then I can go, you know, through, if you have any questions after looking at, what does IR say again? I forget. You can ask me that and I'll tell you, you know, because you may have forgotten. The other thing you can always do is think of a word that has that combination in it. You know, like you can think of the word bird. You're going to be like, oh yeah, in bird it says That's the sound of it, you know? So you have to just kind of train your brain again to remember all those things. But what's good about it is like here, this is the AY lesson. So they're teaching them that A can also make a sound like A, like an acorn, and they're reminding them that they already learned magic E, how E is changing the A to A. And they already learned that sometimes in an open syllable, it says baby if it's a 2-syllable word, and that's at the end of the syllable. That's called an open syllable. That's a previous lesson. So like when you got to here, you'd just be reminding them of that. And then you'd be introducing the new thing. Vowel teams can also make vowels say their own name when you have 2 vowels together, like you do with AI and AY. So AI can say A, and it gives them words with AI, and it shows them where it shows up in the word. So it kind of follows the same patterning, and AY is only at the end of a word. So like you may not remember that. So it's good to just kind of run through the slides yourself so you can kind of, you know, remind yourself of the phonics concepts. because your brain is just automatically processing all that without you registering, and you want to be very explicit with them, so.
So in that hour of time, because that's what we have, right, 4 to 5, basically, is your thought that we'll be able to hopefully get through one lesson?
That would be great. I typically don't get through a lesson in school, but I only have my kids for 40 minutes. So I'm hoping in an hour you could get through it, but it could be that you don't get to finish, and then you'll want to continue with that concept the next week. And you would just kind of pick up wherever you were in the slides, you make a note to yourself, I did the blending drill, but I didn't do this, like, you know, so I have to do from that step on. I only got to step 3, you know? So you'll have to see how your pacing goes. And you'll be able to tighten up that pacing as you go on,
Right.
and like you've done more lessons. So in the beginning, you might not finish a lesson, you know? But hopefully, as time went on, you'd be able to do a whole lesson in a week. And hopefully they learn it, you know, and they come back remembering it. That's what I love about UFlies, even if they don't remember it, it's going to come up and up again. Like it'll come up in the next drill. The G will be there. If they don't remember the G says G, there'll be words with G in them that you'll be doing in the blending drill. But if they really don't know the concept, if they're getting it wrong every time, should do some reteaching, you know, with my slides, or, you know, redo the lesson or parts of it. So, but that again is like judgment calls that we can make kind of as we go along. So, okay. So hopefully you're going to have an adorable little one who really needs your help, and you enjoy helping them.
So what
Yeah.
I'm doing is,
Do you want me to cut it?
okay.
Do you want Danny to cut it?
I mean, the training part is over.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
You can-
cut. Thank you. I know that Stephanie made the suggestion, which I thought was a good idea. We changing the flyer. I have someone who's upstairs with flyers, making it into a manual flyer where we can send it home.